Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. I'm Dr. Doujinshi, and welcome back to another episode of Hentai Reviews, the only series that has noticed, honestly, a substantial amount of growth in the past few days of my, being back and being consistent with a lot of the stuff that I do. So I just want to say thank you again, and if you do decide that you like the content that I make, remember to like the video if, you liked it, or subscribe if you like these sorts of videos. I do post these at least once a week, and I'm sticking to that goal. So with that out of the way, let's get into the actual video. So today we're going to be reviewing episode 1 of a little series known as Kaede to Suzu. I had to say that a lot because Suzu ends up fucking it up and I somehow get the Z. It sounds like I'm saying Zuzu, like, these dudes. Running at about 26 minutes and 51 seconds with a total of about 11 categories, notable of which are, three-way, so we can have the Kaede, Suzu, and main character, along with cosplay, which comes in the second half, and incest, which honestly more goes for the Kaede and Suzu, but we'll talk about that in just a second. Which, let's go ahead and get to the main characters, of course. Hayato being the main character, typical, genitalia with legs that walks around for the plot of most of these things. Kaede, which is the sort of main girl, she's probably the most talkative of all of them and probably the most uptight, and Suzu being the quieter of the two, who has a little bit of a more perverted side. That being said, let's go ahead and get into the first part of this, the animation. The animation. How... there's a lot of times when I bring up animation that I don't really know how to say anything nice, but I don't necessarily want to say anything mean. It's not that there's really a lot going on in this that's particularly special, but there's also a lot of times where I'm making these reviews and I have to figure out a way of saying the animation is good, but not necessarily bad. It's more like a 6 out of 10 is competent across the board, because oftentimes hentai does not exactly stay with a competency rate. So a 5 is usually the standard for good in the beginning, bad towards the end. And honestly, there's a lot of consistency in this one that ends up at around a middle of the road, but starts off very high. Like, there is some production quality in this, which, if I'm gonna be honest, when I was writing this, I forgot what the animation was like because it had been a day and I accidentally fucked up the review. So now that I'm thinking about it, the beginning of it had a strangely good quality. Like damn, I was legit impressed by this. And then it kind of middled out towards the end, but when your lowest is a 5, shit, I might actually have to change my review, because now that I'm thinking about it, like, in person, I'm thinking of this more towards an 8. There's so much maneuver, there's so much quality with just the way that the characters are touched and the way that it like sinks in. There's constant movement. Even the repeated sections that go through this have a little bit of like sway in them that makes them feel like, even though they're the repeated sections over and over, they're not just two solid objects hitting each other. There's physics, really, jiggle physics that you see in animation and video games, but it's legitimately good because there was effort put into it. So I'm gonna stop blubbering about this and I'm gonna give it a solid 8 for the 70% of it that it's great and the 30% of it that starts to slow down towards the end. But lowering budgets, what can you do? And now to what the actual story is about. You see, as I've mentioned before, Hayato, Kaede, and Suzu being the three main characters, and honestly really the only characters aside from some side ones who are there to really like just show off that Kaede is a little bit of a tight ass around her whole thing, but yeah, let's not focus on that. You see, the story focuses on Hayato being the main character of this whole thing with his two sisters, one of them being Kaede, who is a tight ass and is the student council president, whatever the fuck. Everybody knows anime. They know the character who's in charge and has way more responsibilities than honestly a kid in high school should ever have. And then Suzu, who is the quiet but also like devious in a little bit of ways, but like blank face, kundere, where it's like dead but also like they like the character. That's kind of how it goes. It starts with Hayato and Suzu kind of like, I don't want to say catching her off guard, but kind of just, exposing Kaede to a little bit more of a like sexual awakening in a small sort of way to show off that she is being a little bit of a prude with a lot of stuff that's there. And then when she starts finding out that she's into some of the stuff that happens, it then pushes it towards the second act, which has the main characters, or the main two girls, working in a maid cafe run by the school that they're doing. I don't know what the hell's going on with Japan, but if maid cafes are this common throughout plots in them, I genuinely want to know what's going on in like schools over there, because honestly, the biggest thing that ever happened at my school was like field day, and that shit sucked the further you got in, because it was literally just go outside. All right, none of us ever had budget to do shit. We got like $200 to work with through the entire year, and then we were just supposed to make that work. Like, dude, we had pencils. That was a luxury. The fuck are they getting made costumes? But I digress. It later turns into, main character has two girls that are dressed up in maid outfits. He's gonna be ordering some choice things, and then it leads further into that with him having a little bit more of an active relationship with both of them, and them with each other. Yes, they're sisters. There is an incest tag in this for a reason. What would I say the story is? Not necessarily bad. Not good, though. If I had to rate this, I would honestly hold it below average. Not necessarily because anything is going on that's not good, but it's not anything original. And it's also not really done in a very original way. It's pretty much just like guy and girl team up on second girl to make her less of a prude, and then flat out across the board with just, the scenes themselves that kick in, which honestly are a little bit more interesting to talk about than this. So let's go ahead and wrap this up. For the story itself, I'd give it a 4. Not necessarily because it's anything horrible, it's just not original, done in a not original way that leads it to being kind of just a vessel for the actual everything else. The great animation and the little bit less but also good scenes, which let's go ahead and talk about. So 4 out of 10. Now, on to the, more fun to talk about area of it, what we're all really here for, the plot. Now, there is 2 scenes in this that I must preface a little bit beforehand. Unlike most of the other stuff that I've had to review, I have done the start and the beginning. This one's a little strange because when foreplay is a very big part of sex, when it is so integral to the actual scene itself, it has to be quantified, because this was there's such a prelude to each scene that I need to preface it beforehand. Okay, so here we go. You see, the beginning of the first scene starts at 4 minutes and 40 seconds with all 3 characters together in a classroom that then show off the slow degradation into them actually going somewhere. The middle section of it is when the actual interaction begins, the sex, the complete and utter, this is the beginning of it, at 7 minutes and 40 seconds, and the end of it ends at 13 minutes on the dot. Let me preface this again. 4:40 is when the foreplay begins, 7:40 is when the actual sex begins, and 13 minutes on the dot is when the act completely ends. Now, the first scene, it has a slow build, and with the beginning area of just amazing animation, it kicks itself so well that I don't really feel like doing a lot for it. And I just want to preface this, some of the acts that are committed in this, it's not piss. It is not piss. There is a strange yellow tint on a lot of the characters when clear stuff is provided. I have gone through this multiple times, making sure 100% this is not piss. Okay, that is not piss. There is white linings on it. It is clearly discharge, not from a urethra. So we're good. Just wanted to preface this. It's very calm. The music in it slows a lot of what's going on down, and it really just shows off that a lot of what's there is specifically there to build into a further growth of the characters being more open. Now, on to the second scene. The second scene, with the same formula as before, the foreplay itself starts at 14 minutes and 25 seconds, begins completely at 17 minutes and 45 seconds, and ends at 24 minutes and 50 seconds. This one being a little bit more of a flavor of the characters rather than the actual thing itself. It's kind of like the characters are fully together now. They're a little bit more open with the way that they are, and they have a lot more interaction when it comes to sex, and it genuinely shows. Like, it honestly, like, the animation starts to teeter a little bit towards the end, but it does really well with how it's done. Also, maids. I'm not one to judge. Maids are hot. After these two scenes, what can I give the plot of this? Honestly, the plot has a little bit more carry weight over the story than it does anything else, because the story is so integral with the characters becoming more open with these scenes themselves. Now, the plot is hot, and it is well done, but it's not, like, spectacular. I would give this a solid 7. 7 out of 10 is a good section for this, which I feel like I can go more into, but I also feel like I shouldn't, because over-explaining does not make things more enjoyable. So, 7 out of 10, integral to the plot, and does a good job with it. And for the overall ending with all the actual scores leaned up, we end with a 6 out of 10. Sadly, when something is animated well in the beginning, I don't really have high hopes for the next episode unless there is only one more episode, which I'm praying there is, because with the animation and the plot being relatively high on these sorts of scores, I don't want to say anything too bad about it. But I also just want the story to be a little bit more varied, the actual tags themselves to be a little bit more varied, so it can really come into its own, because it has the bone work. It just doesn't have the personality. Imagine ice cream with, imagine the amazing ice cream with an amazing, like, waffle cone, and then, like, a paper towel that you don't know, like a brown paper towel. Like, something's a little off and you don't know what it is, which makes everything else a little bit less presentable. That's really what's going on here. And fuck, I want the best for this, because this has good bones. It's just got an ugly face. But yeah, 6 out of 10. I wish it was higher. That being said, I don't think there's much more to say about this. Kaede to Suzu, episode 1, 6 out of 10. Fuck, I hope the next episode is better. Thank you everybody for watching this episode, and thank you everybody for subscribing and sticking around, all the people that have shown up, because in this last week I've noticed, in, like, it's not really an explosion, but a lot of people started subscribing since my last video, which is honestly doing a lot better than most of my other ones. And I know that I've been gone for a while, but fuck, that's a lot. Almost 500 people at this point, more than 500 probably by the time this has gone up, and that blows my mind. Thank you, everybody. I don't know how to thank you enough. This is a good escape for me from the hell that is my job. So pray for me. And if you don't like praying, subscribe. That's all I got. And remember, thank you, everybody, for being here. Have a nice day. Don't be a dick. There's too many of them. And wash your fucking hands. I've been the doctor. Peace.